Hello. I hope you don't have misophonia because I'm eating some yucca fries. And this is Erik Harrison podcast. I am your host, self-described solipsist Erik Harrison. And today's episode's about me. Yucca. So good. But before we get into all that, the theme song. Mysterious whisper. Mysterious whisper. I'm willing to bet there was some clipping in the recording. Oh, siren. You cannot stop me this time. You can't outshine my light. That was a selection from Fingertips by They Might Be Giants from their album Apollo 18. Apollo 18, excuse me, is a very, very good album. But it's the fan good album as opposed to sort of the famous album. The famous album being Flood, which had its 30-year anniversary? 30-year anniversary? That sounds right. This month. But that's not the album we're talking about. We're talking about Apollo 18. Apollo 18 ends with a song called Fingertips that is like 3.5 minutes long, but is broken up as 21 separate little mini songs that are just a few seconds long a piece. They're not even choruses. They're just like half a chorus. And the idea is that they're broken up as separate tracks on the CD. Do you remember CDs? I remember CDs. And if you play them, you play the whole album on random, you get this effect like you're scrubbing through the radio while on a long car trip. And you'll pass through songs and just hear snippets of them, and maybe songs you've never heard before, on your way to the track you're really there to listen to. But if you listen to the album straight through, you get this totally other effect, where Fingertips is just this 3.5 minute wall of hooks to songs that you never hear all of. And it's almost like, if anyone remembers, Now That's What I Call Music, those CD collections they put out every year, with all the top hits of that period of time, the commercials for those collections would just play like, they'd play the hook. He'd play, and featuring such artists as Smack My Face One More Time, Britney Spears. I actually love Britney, but I have trouble with that song. And then you'd move on to the next one. And so the end of that album feels very much like that. And that is what that screaming was all about. So that's the theme song. First up, as usual on the show, is Old Business. Old Business. I'm old. It was my birthday last weekend. Thank you. Yes, I'm now old. Well, not old, just, aged like a fine banana. I'm trying not to dwell on it too much, so let's not. Up next is our recurring segment, where I read from my Facebook memories. This is actually the only recurring segment that's ever actually recurred. This is the first time we've done a bit that we did before. In the very first episode we did a bit. You don't want to know the backstory behind this fucking thing while you're experiencing it. Also, if you're a fan, you know. So, yeah, I said it. 3 years ago, I posted this on Facebook. A little context for the story that's getting ready to come. If you don't know, John Stang is an actor in D.C. that I am friends with, and is, I would say, moderately well known in the non-equity theater scene in our nation's capital. Not maybe to the general public, but I think an actor would see John and know who John was in D.C. 3 years ago, I dreamed I won an award for advancing the cause of women in the arts as an artistic director. John Stang presented the award to me with a sort of "I know this isn't your fault, but you better fucking fix it" look on his face. And I had to walk past nearly every woman I know in DC on the way to the stage. I opened my mouth to begin speaking and decline the award, but I only got as far as "I'd like to" before the crowd turned on me. They descended on me like a pack of ravenous wolves and ripped me limb from limb before devouring my very flesh. Hundreds of women in gowns with blood on their chins, and me reduced to piles of bones in a rented tux. I have no idea where my headspace was at 3 years ago, but I can make some educated guesses. First off, the best comment was someone saying, "You rented the tux, how tacky." I also commented to someone on the post that I remember thinking in the dream that as all of these understandably angry women descended upon me to rip me limb from limb, it didn't occur to me to resist because I was thinking, as I was being torn apart, this seems fair. To psychoanalyze myself a little bit, I was having trouble with the notion that I was an artistic director at all. I had 6 years ago, so 3 years before this, founded a little theater company called The Coil Project. I'm no longer artistic director there, but it does continue. And in fact, the co-artistic directors, Rebecca Fischler and Erica Smith, are women. But a lot of small DC theaters and even medium-sized DC theaters are founded by women who are actively trying to create opportunities in the arts for themselves and other people who need them. And here was some white dude with a vanity project, which I honestly called a vanity project, but it made it hard to, in any moment, feel like I deserved to be taking space. And when I tried to push past that, I would occasionally make an ass of myself. So I was either not doing my job in terms of taking care of my artists, many of whom are women anyway, and providing them with the marketing opportunities they needed to get good work done, or I was sort of like loudly interjecting myself in places that maybe I should not have. And I can, in fact, think of one incident where I was standing beside a woman who was an artistic director in DC at a event at the Women's Theater Festival several years ago, and had casually mentioned earlier that I had a little company and that I had been dealing with issue X, Y, or Z. And a very important DC theater person, who shall remain nameless, turned to me, looking over the woman artistic director of a bigger and frankly better theater right beside me, to ask me questions about what it was like to be a small time artistic director in the city. I think I probably felt shitty about that ever since, and that may have been one of the impetuses for this dream. So anyway, I expected that to be funnier, and it wasn't. So I guess I'm going to eat one of these fries. Sponsor for today's episode, Chicken and Whiskey, who makes a pretty good yuca fry. Some lime and chili dusted on here. If you wanted to get in the whole chicken sandwich battle of 2019, that's cool. You do that, but there's some local places that make a fucking chicken sandwich. It's pretty delicious. And chicken and whiskey is one of them. And that's what I had for dinner. Today is very busy, so I had to shove some quick food in my face. And there was no time even to swallow before starting the episode, so this is what I do for you, dearest of listeners. This right here. This is all about you. So, self-promotion is bullshit, and I hate it. One of the side effects of being an artiste, at least if you're me, is an inability to say that you are an artiste without adding a shitload of irony to it, such as, for example, pronouncing it artiste. There is a natural need amongst people starting out in any field, really, but the artistic one is the one that I know, to create space for yourself and to promote yourself. And we all hate the bullshittiest forms of this, networking or, posting shit about yourself to Facebook. But the stuff that's even harder for me is that subtle presentation of yourself as someone who matters when you secretly know better. And many of my friends are very, very good at this, where they'll talk about the work they are making, the shows they are in, if they are actors, or the things they have written as writers, or in fact the podcasts they have made, and present it with an excitement and an enthusiasm that makes me want to watch or listen or read those things, and not makes me go, Christ, what an asshole. And every time I attempt to do the same, all I'm thinking is, Christ, I'm an asshole. I recently saw an actor acquaintance of mine mention that they were making the plunge to move to New York, and everything was so supportive. And essentially what they're saying, in one way or another, is that they're looking for more opportunities and maybe they feel like they've outgrown this city. And that's actually kind of offensive to some artists in the area who like to think of ourselves as every bit as worthy as other larger cities, and yet all of those same people were coming out of the woodwork to support this person. And I feel like if I said, hey, I'm sticking around here in DC, the response would be, yeah, that seems fair. Like, that seems like a smart move. Moving's maybe bad for you. And maybe they wouldn't. But I'd think they were lying. And somehow we still expect this of each other. We haven't invented a better solution than wandering out to the street and yelling, hey, look at me. Which, of course, brings us to the most self-involved thing I do, a podcast I actually named after myself. And that is a parody of podcasts and of me. Let's be honest. This is mostly an excuse for me to indulge in vanity and mock myself for it, which is kind of the worst of both worlds. It doesn't actually make it better, but I somehow feel absolved of my sins. What would, of course, the dream would be that somehow I get good enough at this to make enough people laugh that some money comes out of it. And if you would like that to happen, keep aware that you could sponsor an episode and just send me money. Just however much money feels like the right amount of money, and I will say pretty much whatever you want on an episode. Last 2 episodes were sponsored, and that was a delight. So give me your money. Give me. But I, of course, in order to make real money off of the show, need X number of listeners. Now, if you listen to other podcasts, you know that many of them go through this weird growth phase where they're trying to generate listeners. They're trying to get on other podcasts. They're trying to get people with slightly more fame than them on their show and get some cross-promotion going. So they can desperately get enough listeners that they can get a sponsor and then maybe have each episode make them a little money. Not enough money, at least in the beginning, but some money. And the marketing model on which a podcast can operate is that you're not going to make a lot of money per person, whoever your sponsor is. Not your listeners are going to make you less than a penny a piece. So you need to capture as many as possible and that people consume it, your product, as something they listen to while doing other things that they have to do. You're the thing that exists to make the tedium slightly more leavened, and somehow you're going to sneak in the coffee brand that you're sponsoring to make a penny or two. So the dumbest thing to do would be to spend a lot of money on a bespoke ad and send that ad to a small group of people. It would be especially dumb if you have a small podcast like this one to send that bespoke ad out into the real world where users can't immediately click. So, of course, that is exactly what I've done. I have hired the Arcanists, who are producing a show called The Internet Live. And they had this opportunity for you to promote whatever your product or service was in the course of their show. Per person that you're reaching, it costs not a huge amount of money, but more than an internet ad would. The possibility for convergence is very low, as no one can click. I have no way of knowing whether or not there's any match between the people who might like my show and the people who would like their show. And on top of that, because I know my friends, the kind of people who already listen to Erik Harrison, a podcast by Erik Harrison, would be going to the show. So I've already guaranteed that a certain percentage of that audience receiving the bespoke analog ad for a shitty digital podcast, I am maximizing the possibility that they are already listeners. So there is no value in this whatsoever. And that seemed about right. I want to read you my notes, because I had to give notes. Just as you can sponsor Erik Harrison a podcast, and I will say whatever you like, you can send me creative direction about your sponsorship opportunity. The fine folks at The Arcanists had to ask me similar questions. And I'd like to refer to some of my answers. What product or service would you like you to advertise? They foolishly asked. Erik Harrison a podcast, I said back, which is pretty close to saying, I want you to advertise me. And I nearly said that. I nearly said, could you just make me as a human being look good? But I decided that was a bridge too far. Not because I'm above it, but because I didn't want to let them know that I wasn't above it. They asked about the tone, which meant I had to describe this show, which I had never done before. So let's read off just some of the sentences I use to describe the show you are currently listening to, and you can evaluate whether or not you think it's correct. The first thing to note is that while I make no attempt to be actively bad, I make no attempt to be good either. The idea of the podcast, born in a moment of frustration, was to eliminate any barrier to making a thing, including quality, and to see what happens. I do everything wrong. Which, okay, I think that tracks. Later, I call the show listener indifferent and actively hostile to its own creation, which I can tell you that this thing is hostile to me. I don't mean to be hostile to you, except when it's funny. I suggest that their ad for the show should be parodic and unhinged. They asked who my market was, and I said, the primary audience is myself. Beyond that, if it makes Alan being one of the three producers of the show, then it's probably hitting the right target. So all I tried to do was say, this is a dumb thing that I make for myself. The thing that we have to break through and maybe recognize here is that I would legitimately like this podcast that you are currently listening to, which has gone on for an unhinged 18 minutes, to be a genuine thing that you enjoy. But I cannot allow myself to believe that, or to believe that it's possible, until I'm 100% sure it's the case. Everything must be laden with irony in order to protect myself from anyone thinking I'm a jackass, from the wolves descending upon me and ripping me to shreds and leaving me in a pile of bones on the stage. The irony, of course, being that, one, that attitude prevents any real risk-taking, and two, the irony might be the only thing that makes the whole thing funny. Which brings us to the interview. I haven't done an interview in a little while. I have to remember to put this thing on airplane mode so you don't hear the text messages. Why do I do that? Where was I? Right. So the interview. So we might be doing an interview. We might not. Here's what's going to happen. I am getting ready to meet with the producers of the Internet Live, the guys who are making, the folks who are making my weird advertisement, bespoke ad performed live. And they're going to show me the script and show what they've done. I am going to bring my computer and just sort of try to run and gun a stupid interview and see if we can force them to embarrass themselves or to embarrass me live with no preparation. I don't know if that will work. I don't know if they'll say yes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this, and if they say yes, we will resume and we'll have more show. And if not, this is the end. And if this is the end, we probably ought to do the theme song. And then if not, we'll do more, and then I guess we'll do more theme song. So thank you for listening to Eric Harrison, a podcast, and maybe possibly for continuing to listen. What's that blue thing doing here? Hey, yeah, Alan said yes.
I did.
For those of you playing along at home, again, we don't know. Alan asked, I said, I don't know if the audio is going to be usable, and Alan's answer was, is the audio ever usable? Which means I guess you're a fan, Alan.
Yeah.
Because you've at least heard one episode of the show.
I dabbled. The last time I listened to the podcast, besides today, when I was writing ad copy for it, was in a liquor store parking lot in Colorado.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's about the mind space you want to be in when you hear.
It was very cold, and I was escaping a family gathering.
Yeah, it's like I think my audience is people who are like, well, there's definitely a worse option.
It's true.
How are you feeling? You must be exhausted. So just to contextualize for the listeners, Alan and I just did some work on My Space in Your Show.
Yeah.
And I got to watch you guys work on your show, which was very cool. And I know what it's like. So where's your brain at?
My brain is hoping that right now it's 9:30 p.m. and hopefully what's happening is that the computer is coming closer to me.
It's our very technological solution to possible audio problems.
Yeah, I'm hoping that my child is like not crying because she's at home with my wife, and so that's sort of where my head's at right now.
Well, good. I'm going to keep you for only a couple more minutes.
No, it's actually okay because like I don't think I could actually help.
Well, there's also even as a guest, I'm providing you an escape.
Yeah,
from another experience.
Do you have questions for me?
I do actually.
Okay.
Because when I started recording today, what the episode wound up being about was like how much self-promotion sucks.
Oh, yeah.
And you are promoting a show that you were in the process of making.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just sort of curious, like, one, how do you handle, personally as an artist, the cognitive dissonance of making a thing and when it's at peak suck, when you're in that trough?
Oh, that's where we're at in this show right now. Yeah.
That's the point where you have to tell most people to come see it.
Yeah. So, like, what I usually do is I pretend that somebody that I really like is doing the show. And like I sort of gather the excitement that I would have for somebody else's show and apply it to mine. The other thing I do is I usually lie to people and I tell them that it's going really well and that I'm so excited for them to see it. And usually they believe me, which I guess is why you get a theater degree.
Right. Although, I'm going to ask you honestly, because I do the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think if I'm being maybe more honest than is really fun to myself, is that there's a part of me that's lying, there's a part of me that's telling the truth. Because the part of me that's lying is like, God, it's just garbage right now. It's just garbage. The part of me that's telling the truth is the part that's still excited about the original idea and knows that I'm here before. Do you have that? Like, is your part of your brain like still genuinely?
I do. I'm naturally a very happy person. Like it's like mania is my problem, not depression.
Right.
Which is why I will go to the farmer's market and buy 10 pounds of peaches and make quarts of peach jam.
I do that because of depression. So
it's either way the jam is sweet. But yeah, like I'm excited for people to have fun. Like we do a lot of like interactive stuff and stuff where people get to be themselves, and like there's nothing more joyful than those really pretty moments when somebody gets to be exactly themselves on stage.
Right.
So I don't like. The great part about doing that is I don't have to worry about like does the thing that I wrote suck, because I didn't actually write anything. Like they just get to be themselves, and for this one they get to play games, and Like that's fucking great.
Can I do the awful podcast host thing, which I think ordinarily I would avoid?
Okay.
But I think is interesting. Can you tell people what the show is we're talking about?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I thought you were going to talk about like eating an ice cream cone in front of the mic. So the show is The Internet Live. It's by the Arcanists, who are producers of the tarot reading. We're producing it in conjunction with Science AF, who runs Nerd Night DC. It is an internet-based game show. I have the copy over there. It's an internet-based game show where we bring the fun community of the internet into a live bar in Clarendon. All of the naughty bits and the news bits and the video bits and the memes all at once. And so it's sort of like it's a bit of sucking on a fire hose. This because we've got like the show's like an hour long and we've got 8 games that we're playing, so it's going to be rapid fire and just an absolute blast where you can get shit housed and watch people play games.
That sounds fucking fabulous.
I'm really excited about it.
You just said you were excited about it. See, you're in the trough, and that was genuine.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that I do is I try to think about the people that I'm working with and think, no matter how shitty I feel, I'm still excited about them.
Yeah.
Right. And you're sort of talking about the same thing. Like you're excited to get to see them be themselves on stage.
Well, and you also like you tell people about it because there's nothing worse than working hard with somebody and like encouraging people to believe in something and then having nobody show up.
Right, because you want an audience because they worked so hard.
Yeah, I want them to feel good and like not like I've played like I remember doing Shakespeare in the Pub. We did Two Noble Kinsmen on the night of like a giant storm, and there were 3 people in the audience, and like there were so many more actors on stage than there were. I say stage. It was a sticky bar floor, but like those people had a great time, and we gave our all for them. But like I never want the people that I pay money to perform to feel like that.
Yeah. Well, I am genuinely excited to see the show. I'm excited to see how the podcast promotion works inside of it, because like that just feels like a fun joke within the show generally. And I will tell our loyal listener that I did get to see a little preview tonight of how it works, and I think it's going to be. I think genuinely I laughed in the room. I had fun.
I'm glad for that.
Yeah.
I think that people are going to have a great time. We've got like there's going to be a guy dressed up as Keyboard Cat. Like
what more do you need?
Like you could just watch him on stage for an hour.
Yeah,
great. Yeah. So wait, hold on. Okay, I can't fart without pooping. So I was gonna try to be the first fart.
The first fart on the show.
The first really, but like,
yeah.
But really, it's sort of threatening.
Well,
sort
I
of
should
a
probably
foreboding butthole.
let you go
on.
Take a shit, Alan. I appreciate you being on the show. Do you know They Might Be Giants?
Like personally?
Like as musicians, do you know the music?
I have listened to their children's albums.
Yes, I love their children's albums. I imagine you have to listen to them under different constraints than I do. Perhaps like ad nauseum.
Well, yeah, we sort of have like I actually have a playlist. If you follow me, Revolting Beavers on Spotify, you can follow my For Beatrice playlist, which is.
A double promotion. You promote a show and a Spotify playlist.
I can't help myself.
A first on the show. Well, if you listen, you know that I sing a dumb theme song every time.
Yeah.
You probably don't know this one, but I'm going to end with a little bit of a They Might Be Giants song.
Okay.
To roll the show out. If you do, for some reason, know it, you're welcome to sing along. But this is the end of Fingertips from Apollo 18. I walk along darkened corridors.
Oh, yes, I did it!
He farted! He farted, ladies and gentlemen. That's the end of the show.